Okay, so, hear me out. Of course, I know vampires aren't real. I wasn't looking for an actual vampire, but instead for someone who was a part of the vampire subculture. You see, I'm a college student. I majored in cultural studies. I needed to write a 40-page thesis about recently formed subcultures. I was always a sucker for vampires, werewolves, and other folklore, so I picked the vampire subculture. For my thesis, I wanted to interview someone who was a part of it, so I can gather some first-hand expressions and how a typical day for them was like. There was only one problem, though. It was quite hard to find someone who was a part of that culture. After talking to countless trolls on the internet who pretended to be actual vampires, I figured that finding someone genuine is nearly impossible. In an act of despair, I put an ad on Craigslist. I know, that's probably step one on how to get murdered. But I thought if someone was willing to meet up, they wouldn't make an effort to bullshit me. Looking back at it, I can see how naive and dumb that was. Anyways, someone actually volunteered and contacted me. We were talking a bit via email and agreed on a day and time. Skipping to the day of the interview, I got really nervous because I didn't know what kind of person would show up to my door. I know. Letting a stranger from the internet into your house is a step 2 on how to get murdered. But, like I said, I was desperate. It was early in the evening when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was greeted by the tall, light brown-skinned, bearded man. He didn't look like what I had expected. I was expecting someone dressed in Gothic-style clothes, but this man was wearing a fancy black suit. By the looks of it, it seemed like an old suit, but in pretty good condition. I sucked at guessing ages, but he looked like he was in his 30s to me. "Are you Mike?" he asked with a light accent, which seemed Middle Eastern or Eastern European. It kind of sounded like a mixture of both. "Yeah, you must be Adam." "Yes, I'm here for my interview. Can I come in?" he asked with a friendly smile on his face. "Yeah, sure. Be my guest." I pointed toward the couch next to the door. "Please, take a seat." He sat down and I sat in the chair in front of him. To be honest, I was still kind of nervous about this whole deal. But for some reason, I was intrigued by the guy. "You said you were looking for a vampire for your studies, so here I am." "Yeah, I'm writing a thesis for my cultural studies, and I was hoping to get some information from someone who's actually part of that culture." "Ah, yes, for authenticity, I assume." He still gave me that friendly smile. "Authenticity. Yeah, you can put it like that. Do you mind if I record our conversation?" No, I don't mind. So, what do you want to know?" He had made himself comfortable on the couch and laid one arm on the back of it. "Well, just tell me about yourself and how you got into this lifestyle." Very well. You see, this lifestyle was inevitable for me. I had some family issues while growing up, and things tend to happen, you know." I was confused by his reply, but I didn't want to ask him what he meant by it. "Oh, I see. Well then, let me ask you another question. How do you become a vampire? Is it more of a mentality you develop, or does it require more?" "You get bitten to become one, of course." He laughed. "It is a mentality, yes, but it requires more than just thinking like that. You have to live it, feel it." "I see. Since you joked about the biting, do you really bite people and consume human blood?" "Yes, some of us do, but animal blood will do it too." "Aren't you afraid of getting any diseases by doing that? And how do you even get human blood? I don't think a hospital or something will just hand you bags of blood." "No, He chuckled. I'm not afraid of getting sick. Obtaining human blood is quite simple. You just ask someone to volunteer. Like you did. Yeah, I replied in confusion. I didn't catch what he meant by that. So, you get blood donated by volunteers? Yes, sometimes, he said while smiling again. How often do you drink blood? I guess it depends on how often someone donates. Well, when I was younger, it was almost daily, but nowadays it isn't that often anymore. It's once a month, and two special occasions. We only have to drink once a month. I see. Do you have any preferences when it comes to blood? I mean, do you look for a certain blood type? No, any type will do, but there is a significant taste in every type. Do you mind explaining the differences? Sure. A has a sweet flavor to it. B is a little bit bitter in taste. It's like your first beer. At first it tastes horrible, but you develop a taste for it. O has a sour flavor, and my favorite AB tastes somewhat like honey. It even smells like it. You see, it does require certain knowledge to tell the difference, he said in a slight serious tone. Interesting, to be honest. If I ever had the opportunity to taste any of those, I would probably go with AB then, I said jokingly. Would you like to try? His tone changed into a friendlier one again. Unfortunately, I don't have any with me, but next time I have some, I will share it with you. He chuckled again. That would be very generous, I said with a nervous laugh. My initial interest in him was becoming slowly a suspicious one. The way he talked all about this was kind of unnerving to me. I wasn't sure if he was just trying to scare me or if he was genuine. Any further questions? He smiled and gave me a patient look. Oh yeah, sorry. I was lost in my thoughts for a moment. Does being a vampire affect your life? If so, in which ways? Ah, good question. Yes, when I first became a vampire, it took me a while till I adjusted to the new life. It wasn't always easy for me. I couldn't do certain things anymore that I loved before. For example, I loved gardening, farming and growing every kind of crop. You see, my family were farmers, and I wanted to be just like my father when I was growing up. Unfortunately, after my transition, I wasn't able to farm anymore. My brother had passed away, and my parents didn't like what I had become, and we had a little family dispute. I guess every good household has their shares of arguments. His voice was overtaken by a sadness. Oh, I'm sorry to hear. I hope they change their minds and you guys can make up, I said, trying to comfort him. Sadly, that won't be possible. They passed a long time ago. He changed his sitting position and straightened his posture. But the past is the past. I mourned their loss long enough. His smile had returned. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. Anyways, let's continue with questions, shall we? Yes, go on. What do you think of the depiction of vampires in modern pop culture, literature, and so on? Surely it must have had a big impact on you. Inaccurate. The depiction changed over the years. There was a time when we were feared, but many authors and alike romanticized the concept of vampires to fit modern audience. I would even dare to say that some are disrespectful to my kind. I'm talking about the sparkling ones. His tone had changed into a serious one again. I couldn't figure this guy out. First he was all friendly and charming, but then his demeanor changed rapidly. All this talk about we, us, my kind, freaked me out a little bit. Is this guy messing with me, or does he actually think he's a vampire? Either way, I decided to play along because I didn't know what this guy might do if I didn't. So, you don't agree with the modern depiction? What would be an accurate one? Well, Mike, you see one right in front of you. His tone hadn't changed, but he had a smile on his face. I gave an obvious nervous smile. Oh, so you're telling me you're an actual vampire? He chuckled. I didn't say I wasn't, did I? Great. My suspicions were correct. I invited a psycho into my house. I just fucking hate it when I'm right. God knows what he was going to do to me if I said something that would upset him. He didn't seem stable. His moods are a fucking roller coaster ride. Man, this was probably part 3 on how to get murdered. I had no idea what I'd have to do to get rid of him. This pissed me off quite hard because I tried my best to hide my anger and my frustration and put on my best poker face. Okay, so let me get this straight. You are a real-life vampire. Yes, I am. What would you call a vampire? All right. You didn't tell me how you became a vampire, though, I said while trying to keep my shit together. God, he hissed. God? What do you mean by that? God turned me into this. He had raised his voice and was almost shouting at me. All the shit I had tried to keep together was almost let loose as he was shouting at me. Okay, we don't have to talk about that if you don't feel comfortable. I would prefer if we didn't. Do you have any other questions for me? He had calmed down again and was talking in a friendly way again. For fuck's sake, this guy was bipolar or something. He obviously wasn't right in the head. How old are you? He gave a thoughtful like he was really trying to figure out his age. I don't know anymore. I can't answer this question, I'm sorry. I lost my sense of time millennia ago. Well, but I can tell you I saw many empires rise and fall. I saw how the Romans conquered almost the whole known world back then. I saw the Dark Ages in Europe, the discovery of the New World, an American Revolution and the World Wars. I saw and lived everything, and I'll probably see much more. So, you must be very old then. Did you know Dracula? Was he also a vampire? You mean Vlad Tempest? No, he wasn't. And yes, I did know him. He invited me once, and I stayed with him for quite some time. He was a great host to me. I see. What about garlic? Is it really a weakness to you? It smells horrible. He laughed. But it's not. Religious objects, on the other hand, are quite unpleasant. Why? As I told you, he turned me into this restless soul. This time shouted at me. I lost my shit at this point. A mixed feeling of scared and anger came over me, but I kept calm. All I wanted is that he just left. I decided to conclude the interview. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I have 2 questions left. It's okay, he said, switching to a more friendly tone. What are your last questions? Where were you born? A good question. I was born in the cradle of the first civilization. It's today. He paused. What is it, Mike? I can hear your heart racing. Are you upset? My poker face was not good enough. He had seen through it and could tell I was mad. So I took all my courage and told him, I'm having a really hard time believing you. That's all. Oh, Mike, I have nothing to gain by lying to you, but I can show you the truth. He almost sounded sad, and then he closed his eyes. Never in my life did I feel so much fear. I was shocked to my core when he opened his eyes. Did you ever have a really bad dream where you woke up and jumped out of bed? It was like that, but I didn't jump. I fell backwards off the chair. His eyes were red and serpent-like. His light brown skin turned grayish. He was so pale he didn't even look like he was alive. That friendly smile turned into a sinister, toothy grin. 4 sharp fangs did portray as he grinned. 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Do you believe me now, Michael? As he said this, he stood up and squatted down next to me. What is your last question? I crawled backwards to the wall to get some distance between us, but it was no real use. I only moved a few inches to the wall. Is Adam even your real name? I stuttered in terror. No, it's not. Adam is an alternate of someone's name who is dear to me. I have a third question, I uttered in fear for my life. When was the last time you drank blood? Adam, or whatever his name was, grinned became wider. It was exactly 1 month ago. I wept. Are you going to kill me? He put his hand on my shoulder. Shh. Don't be afraid. I will drink blood from you, but I won't kill you, Michael. You were a great host to me. So you shall live. Then everything faded to black. I woke up the next day on the couch where my guest sat. Everything looked like the day before. I was still shaking in fear and felt like crying. This whole deal felt like a nightmare, but I was still alive. This thing had mercy on me and let me live. This wasn't a dream. It was real. I checked the recording of the interview. It was empty. The goddamn thing didn't record anything. I felt like I was going crazy. The recording was my only proof that that night really happened, but it was gone, or never there to begin with. After I calmed down, I checked my whole body for bite marks, but nothing. Maybe this was really just a bad dream. Maybe I never talked to that person, if you can even call him that. My emails. I still had the mails that this would prove that I wasn't dreaming. I logged into my account, and there was a new mail from Vampyr 4124 at xxxx.com. That was his address. Interview with a vampire. Hey, Mike. I'm sorry I couldn't make it up to you yesterday. Something came up, and I couldn't leave. I hope you are still up for that interview. Could we meet on Friday if you're free? Send 16 December 2020, 15:40. This mail had come before the interview. I must not have seen it. This would mean I really did dream it. It must have been a dream. What else? Vampires aren't real, I thought to myself. It was relieving that I was just having a bad dream, but for some reason this dream never left me alone. I kept thinking about it every day and had terrible night terrors afterwards. My mental and physical health became worse in the past weeks. I still had night terrors and I felt like shit. I failed my studies and dropped out of college. I couldn't focus anymore at daytime, and I can't sleep at night in fear of having another night terror. Since I dreaded sleeping, I took a job at the gas station. I did the night shifts there. One early morning, I came back from work and there was a package on my front door. I ordered something out of Amazon, so I didn't think about it and just took it inside. I opened the package, and inside was a tape and a jar. I couldn't tell what was inside because the jar wasn't made of glass. Curiosity got the better of me and I opened it. Out of it came this familiar but unknown smell. He was right. AB really does smell like honey.